Before we start the guide, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and commented. Let me know what you think about the videos and the guide series that I'm doing right now. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these in the future and leave that bell button on. Starting with your estates, the very first thing you want to do is seize land from them, since that's going to lower their loyalty to 30%, so that's not going to be a rebellion and you still get some bonuses from them. And next up, you want to give some privileges. We're going to give the burghers both of our monopoly privileges, as well as the free enterprises and the commercial advisory board for the cost reduction towards our advisors. Pretty much the same thing for the clergy. You give both the monopolies to the clergy, clerical advisory council, and oversight by the clergy. The reason we gave the monopolies is simply because you get 4 mercantilism from them, and we really want to get as much mercantilism as possible in the early game. That's really going to help us out since we have the best trade node available to us, and more mercantilism means more provincial trade power in our provinces. The clerical advisory board and the other one for the cost reduction is simply because you get 2 50% cost reduction advisors at the start of the game. One of them is a theologian and the other one is a diplo rep guy. Together with the privileges and their initial 50% starting bonus, they cost basically nothing to maintain. Also, make sure you get 1 military advisor. I recommend a morale of armies if he is available. Make sure you add 3 more spots to the parliament. Give 3 more seats to whatever provinces you feel you want to give them to, and I highly recommend going for the advisor cost minus 10%. Make sure you get that enacted, and that basically means that your advisor cost 0.66 per month for the first 2 and 0.9 for the military advisor one. As such, your economy is still quite okay even with the production loss that we gave the monopolies and with the advisors hired. When it comes to trade, honestly just leave it as it is. You shouldn't bother with it too much. It's set up quite nicely. You want to be collecting in the English Channel, and you're already sending some of the cash from Lübeck and the North Sea towards the English Channel. The reason we took the extra cash is because we're gonna have both the French war to deal with and the English Civil War, and that's going to be a tough one, so it's really recommended that you get this cash from the monopolies. It definitely will help you out so much, and it's not going to get you into too many loans during the war. When it comes to your army, recruit the Free Company, which is an 8 units company, and it's definitely cheaper than your standard units at the start of the game. It literally is going to fill up your land force limit, so you're going to have a maximum of 37. Alliance wise, the English have quite a few options, so it's best to choose the ones closest to France, and especially those that rivaled France and your own rivals. I recommend either the Castilians or the Aragonese, but in my case the Aragonese have rivaled the French, so that would be your first alliance. Wait for 1 day so you can get your second ally, and if possible go for Burgundy, since Burgundy would also like to get involved in the war against the French. Sometimes Burgundy rivals you, but if that happens, you can just reload the game. It's a 50-50 chance of actually getting them to not rival you. As a 4th ally, I would go for Austria, but if you cannot get Austria because of their bad relations with Burgundy, then you can also go for Britannia, as that's going to help you out a lot more in the early game. After you pick your allies, make sure you pick your rivals as well. Of course, the first one would have to be France, followed by Scotland, since you're going to be expanding in this area very shortly. And third off, if you can get Denmark as a rival, I would recommend getting them, since you want to take these islands from the Norwegians, and you're gonna have to go to war with Denmark for that. The best approach for that is to just support independence for the Swedes, so whenever they start breaking out, help them and get these 3 provinces here, or if possible Iceland too. Before the French war starts, make sure you send your whole army to Normandy and ensure that you add the general that you start off with from the beginning to your army. You can also recruit a secondary general if you like to, or you can just make your ruler as a general. I recommend that since he's going to die off anyway. Make sure to bring your fleet to Sussex so that it's closer to the French, and you should delete your forts in Calais and La Bourde, since you're basically going to be abandoning those parts, and Calais should not fall as fast if you call in the Burgundians. Keep the fort in Cayenne, since this is where we're going to make our stand against the French. Once the surrender of Maine event happens, make sure you go for the lower option so you do not give Maine away, and you go into a war with the French. Start sending one of your armies to Chartres, and make sure to call in the Aragonese into the war. You're gonna have to promise land so they join. You can also do your mission, the 100 Years War mission, which gives you permanent claims on Ile-de-France and Champagne, which are these 2 provinces in the north part here. Throughout the war, ensure that you keep your armies very close to each other. Do not stray too far away from one another, otherwise you might get picked off. And on the other hand, you should be picking off the French armies, since they are going to be quite split apart. If the Burgundians have friendly relations with the French, they are not going to join you in the war. So keep that in mind when you choose your alliances. Ensure that they have a rivalry with the French. Once the siege of Chartres is done, you have a foothold in northern France, so you can just hop on over to Paris and you can siege Orléans at the same time. Don't forget to also set up the defensive edict in Normandy, where you have your remaining fort. This should really give a big amount of trouble to the French when sieging Cayenne. If need be, and you have to get some mercenaries to help you out in the war, make sure you get the ones that have the highest pips for their generals and have decent buffs, such as the Forlorn Hope that are unique for the English. Once you get the mercs, ensure that you attach them to one of your armies and you don't just let them go around by themselves. Try to get as much war score from battles as you possibly can, and try to wipe out the French armies one by one separately if possible. And holding on to Cayenne is really important as well, since having this one province ensures that the other 3 provinces around, even though they're sieged, they're going to get unsieged, and the war score the French are going to get is going to be basically nothing from having the other 3 provinces. Once you take Paris, you have the mission Strategic Control, which is going to give you an enforced union casus belli and France, as well as a permanent claim on the Brittany area. So if you did not ally Brittany, you can attack them and take over all of this part after you finish the war with the French. Another thing I want to stress out is the fact that should the War of the Roses happen before you can finish the war with the French, it's going to be pretty bad for you. So you have 2 options. If you'd like to go for a world conquest or a Roman Empire game, then push the war with the French and ensure that you get the 60% war score to enforce the personal union. But if you're just going for a chill England game, then you can just piece them out and get some cash from them. This way you can focus on your English Civil War as well as attack Brittany afterward and slowly unify your lands by the coastline of France. The thing is, you will still have the Union Restoration casus belli on the French, so even if you finish the war without enforcing the Union now, you can still do it afterwards, after you stabilize your country and finished with the Civil War. If you want to go for the PU, you know what to do, you know how to win the war. Make sure you get your mercenaries and remember the starting moves that I talked at the start of the video. For our video, we're gonna piece them out. As such, we're just gonna ask for war reparations and cash, which means that if we want to go for our enforced union CB, we can get it after 1456, which is when our truce expires. Make sure you get your units back to the English island and use the money that you took from the French to pay off your loans, which you should have 1 or 2 of them. The Civil War has triggered. Make sure before you click any of these 2 options, and also go for the option whichever has better pips. So in my case, that would be Charles I Lancaster has better pips than the other guy. Choosing either of these 2 options is going to make sure that you lose 7,000 manpower. So before you choose anything, make sure that you recruit a couple of units, and then you go for your option, and then afterwards you cancel the recruitment so that you get back your manpower. It's a bit cheesy, but it is a mechanic, so whatever. Also ensure that you bring back your stability. It is not required, but it helps with reducing the amount of rebels that you get. In order to win the Civil War, we need to kill off the pretender, as well as make sure that we don't have any pretender rebels spawned or any provinces owned by them. This is a scripted event, so no matter how many times you're gonna kill off this one rebel army, as soon as you finish them off, you're gonna get another rebel army spawned in. So you're gonna have to destroy around 5 to 6 rebel armies before the Civil War finishes. The rebels also have considerably more morale than you at the start, so keep that in mind. Make sure that you bring both your armies to attack the rebels if you're struggling with it. Once your ruler has above 2 administrative skill, you're gonna get this really awesome decision. Make sure you enact it so you get 10 mercantilism because of the port of Calais. This is gonna boost your trade income considerably, as you already have 40 mercantilism by 1448. After winning a battle, make sure you finish the rebels off, otherwise they're gonna pop up again. Yet another rebel army spawned in Norfolk. We're gonna make sure that we bring both of our armies here to deal with them so that we don't lose too many troops. Once the Civil War is finished, go to your missions and you can fulfill the War of the Roses Civil War, which is going to give you minus 10% aggressive expansion and +1 legitimacy for 15 years. You can use this time to get your manpower back as well, so that you can get the permanent claims on all of the Irish region as well as a subjugation CB on the Scottish. You're also going to get an event to make your rival your heir after the war finishes. This gives you 1 stability, and if you really don't want him to be your heir, you can quite simply just disinherit him if he doesn't have 2 good pips. Should you wish to, you can also attack Brittany since you have the permanent claims on their provinces, and adding this up would make a very nice looking England, which spans all of northern France here. This also is really good since it keeps France itself from taking over Brittany before you attack them again. Taking over all the provinces in Brittany is going to be a lot of aggressive expansion, so what I do recommend you do is vassalize them, which is going to be just 46 AE, so it's actually possible to do so without getting a coalition triggered. Once you have the Britons as a vassal, you're going to have a stronger foothold in the north of France, or better yet on the coastline of France. Once you get Admin Tech 5 and you can get your first idea set, I really recommend going for exploration, since as the English you really want to establish a global empire starting with the North American continent. After you've gotten the first idea that allows you to get explorers and conquistadors, make your fleet and start exploring this area here. As a second idea set, whenever you get a chance, I would recommend going for expansion, not just for the policy but for the settlers and the extra colonists and settler chance. As the English, you really want to focus on expanding your colonies and bringing all that trade from the Americas into the English Channel.